My name is David Scott. I'm a 54-year-old living in Detroit, Michigan, and for the past 18 years, I've been the backbone of Tech Forward Industries' 3D printing department. Every morning at 6:30 a.m., I'd walk through those glass doors with my thermos of black coffee and my worn leather briefcase, ready to tackle whatever engineering challenge awaited me. Detroit might not be Silicon Valley, but our little corner of the Motor City has become a hub for advanced manufacturing. Tech Forward specialized in automotive prototyping, and I was proud to say that some of the most innovative car parts rolling off assembly lines across America had started as digital files on my computer screens. My workspace was a testament to experience. 3 large monitors displaying CAD software, shelves lined with prototype parts I'd perfected over the years, and a collection of technical manuals that younger engineers often borrowed but never seemed to return. I knew every quirk of our 12 industrial 3D printers like they were my own children. The Stratasys and Corner Bay 3 that ran hot and needed recalibration every Tuesday, the Markforged that produced the strongest carbon fiber parts but required a specific bed temperature sequence that I'd developed through trial and error. But everything changed 6 months ago when Tech Forward hired Marcus Chen as the new department supervisor. At 29, Marcus came straight from MIT with an MBA and what he called disruptive innovation strategies. His first department meeting was filled with buzzwords like digital transformation, agile methodologies, and generational synergy. While I took notes and asked practical questions about production schedules, Marcus seemed more interested in impressing upper management with his PowerPoint presentations than understanding how our department actually functioned. The contrast between us was stark. Marcus wore expensive suits and carried the latest MacBook, while I preferred my comfortable khakis and the reliable ThinkPad that had served me faithfully for 5 years. He talked about leveraging AI solutions, while I focused on maintaining our 99.2% print success rate, the highest in the company's history. What really bothered me wasn't his youth or his fancy degree. It was the way he looked at me during meetings, like I was some relic from a bygone era who couldn't possibly understand modern manufacturing. Little did he know that this old-timer had forgotten more about 3D printing than he'd ever learned from textbooks. The first sign of trouble came during our monthly department review in February. Marcus had been supervisor for just 3 weeks, but he'd already scheduled what he called a comprehensive efficiency audit. As I presented our quarterly numbers, 18% faster production times and 15% cost reduction compared to last year, Marcus barely looked up from his tablet. "David, these metrics are adequate," he said, emphasizing that the last word tasted bitter. "But we need to think bigger. The automotive industry is evolving rapidly, and frankly, some of these processes feel outdated." I felt my jaw tighten. Outdated? We're exceeding every benchmark the company set for us. "Benchmarks from 2019, maybe?" Marcus replied with a dismissive wave. "I've been researching next-generation additive manufacturing. There are AI-driven print optimization algorithms that could revolutionize our workflow. We need fresh perspectives, innovative thinking, younger ideas." Those 2 words hit me like a physical blow. Younger ideas. Not better ideas, not more efficient ideas, younger ideas. The implication was crystal clear. Over the following weeks, Marcus began implementing changes without consulting me. He hired 2 recent graduates, Jennifer and Kyle, both in their mid-20s, both eager to impress their new supervisor. During team meetings, Marcus would turn to them first for input, nodding enthusiastically at their suggestions while barely acknowledging my decades of experience. "Jennifer, what's your take on transitioning to cloud-based print management?" he'd ask, even though I'd already explained why our current system worked better for our specific client needs. The breaking point came in April during a critical project for Ford. We were prototyping a new transmission housing that required precise tolerances and specific material properties. I'd spent 2 days perfecting the print parameters, but Marcus overruled my specifications in favor of what he called Jennifer's innovative approach. "David, I appreciate your traditional methods," he said during our heated discussion in his office. But it's time to embrace change. The future belongs to digital natives who understand modern manufacturing paradigms. I watched from my desk as 3 expensive prototypes failed catastrophically, costing the company $12,000 in materials and pushing back our Ford deadline by a week. When I suggested returning to my original specifications, Marcus just shook his head. "We need to innovate through failure, David. That's how progress happens in the 21st century." The humiliation reached its peak during the May all-hands meeting. Marcus had invited executives from 3 major automotive clients to showcase what he proudly called our revolutionary new workflow integration. I sat in the back row of the conference room, watching him click through slides filled with industry jargon, while Jennifer and Kyle flanked him like eager disciples. "Our team has embraced cutting-edge methodologies," Marcus announced to the room of 50 employees and clients. "By leveraging generational diversity and fresh perspectives, we've optimized our production pipeline for maximum efficiency." What he didn't mention was that our department's success rate had dropped to 78% since his optimizations began. What he didn't show was the growing pile of failed prints cluttering our workspace, or the frustrated emails from clients asking about delayed deliveries. But the worst moment came when Robert Martinez, Ford's procurement manager, asked a technical question about material stress testing protocols. Marcus fumbled for an answer, throwing around buzzwords that made no sense in context. That's when he turned to me with a patronizing smile. "David, why don't you explain our traditional approach to stress testing? I'm sure our clients would find it interesting to hear how we used to do things." The way he said "used to" made my blood boil. Every person in that room could hear the condescension dripping from his voice. I stood up slowly, my hands trembling with anger and embarrassment. "Our current stress testing protocols," I began, emphasizing the word current, "follow industry standards that have been proven effective over decades of—" "Thank you, David," Marcus interrupted, already moving to the next slide. "As I was saying about our forward-thinking initiatives." After the meeting, I overheard Marcus talking to Jennifer near the coffee machine. "Poor guy just can't adapt to modern workplace dynamics," he said, with mock sympathy. "Sometimes you have to make tough decisions for the good of the team." That evening, I sat in my home office surrounded by technical certifications, industry awards, and photos from 18 years of successful projects. My wife Susan found me there at midnight, staring at my computer screen. "They're going to fire me," I told her quietly. "That kid is systematically undermining everything I've built, and there's nothing I can do about it." But as I spoke those words, something on my computer screen caught my eye. An email notification from our print monitoring system. Multiple machines were showing error codes I'd never seen before. The email that changed everything arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in late May. It was an automated alert from our print monitoring system, something I'd personally installed and maintained for 3 years, but which Marcus had dismissed as legacy infrastructure. Critical error, multiple system failures detected, immediate intervention required. I threw on my clothes and drove to the office, my heart pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. The building was dark except for the emergency lighting in our department, where I could see the red warning lights blinking on 8 of our 12 3D printers. What I discovered made my engineering mind race with possibilities. Every machine that Marcus and his team had optimized with their new AI-driven settings was experiencing the same cascading failure. Print heads were clogged, filament was jamming, and the build plates were warped beyond repair. But the 4 machines I'd been secretly maintaining with my outdated protocols were running perfectly. As I documented everything with my phone camera, I realized this wasn't just equipment failure, it was validation of everything I'd been trying to tell them for months. Those younger ideas had ignored fundamental principles of thermodynamics, material science, and mechanical engineering that couldn't be replaced by algorithms and buzzwords. I spent the next 4 hours quietly fixing what I could and carefully documenting what I couldn't. More importantly, I downloaded 3 months of print logs, error reports, and system data that told a story Marcus definitely didn't want upper management to see. When Marcus arrived at 9 a.m. with his usual grande latte and confident stride, he found me waiting in the department with a thick folder of documentation and a calm smile that probably unnerved him more than any angry confrontation would have. "We need to talk," I said simply. But before he could respond, his phone started buzzing with notifications. Jennifer and Kyle were discovering the same equipment failures I'd found hours earlier, and their panicked voices were already echoing through the department. If you're rooting for David to finally get the recognition he deserves, hit that subscribe button, because this old-timer is just getting warmed up. The look on Marcus's face when he saw the failed machines was priceless, a mixture of panic and confusion that told me everything I needed to know. While he frantically called Jennifer and Kyle into an emergency meeting, I calmly began implementing damage control procedures I'd developed over nearly 2 decades of experience. "David, what happened here?" Marcus demanded, his usual confidence replaced by obvious stress. "System failures," I replied matter-of-factly, pulling up diagnostic screens he'd never bothered to learn how to read. "Cascading errors caused by parameter conflicts in the new optimization protocols." What Marcus didn't realize was that I'd been quietly documenting every change he'd made to our systems. While he'd been focused on impressing executives with PowerPoint presentations, I'd been tracking the real-world consequences of his innovations. Print failure rates, material waste percentages, client complaints, I had it all. "Can you fix them?" he asked, and for the first time since he'd been hired, I heard genuine respect in his voice. "I can fix the ones that aren't permanently damaged," I said, already pulling replacement parts from my carefully organized inventory. "But we need to discuss the root causes of these failures." As I worked, word spread quickly through the office. Sarah from Quality Control stopped by to ask about delayed shipments. Tom from Accounting wanted to understand the cost implications of the material waste. Even Robert Martinez from Ford called personally to check on the status of their critical prototypes. Each conversation was an opportunity to subtly demonstrate that the department's recent problems weren't random equipment failures. They were predictable consequences of ignoring established engineering principles in favor of untested, innovative approaches. By lunchtime, I'd restored 4 machines to full operation using my original specifications. The contrast was stark. 8 machines running Marcus's optimized parameters sat silent and broken, while 4 machines running my outdated settings hummed along perfectly, producing high-quality parts on schedule. Marcus watched this demonstration with growing unease. "How did you know how to fix them so quickly?" he asked. "Experience," I replied simply. "The kind that comes from understanding not just what works, but why it works." That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. I requested a meeting with Janet Thompson, our department head, and brought along my comprehensive documentation of the past 3 months. It was time to let the data tell the real story. Janet Thompson's office felt different that Wednesday afternoon. Maybe it was the late sunlight streaming through her corner windows, or maybe it was the confidence I felt carrying 3 months of meticulously documented evidence. For the first time in months, I wasn't walking into a meeting as the outdated employee. I was walking in as the problem solver. "David, I have to admit I'm concerned about the recent equipment failures," Janet began, gesturing for me to sit across from her mahogany desk. "Marcus mentioned there might be some systemic issues with our older machines." I opened my folder and placed the first set of documents on her desk. "Janet, with respect, the issues aren't with our older machines. They're with newer processes that ignore fundamental engineering principles." Over the next hour, I walked her through everything. The correlation between Marcus's parameter changes and increased failure rates, the $47,000 in wasted materials, the declining client satisfaction scores, and most importantly, the simple fact that machines running my original specifications had 0 failures during the same period. "These numbers are concerning," Janet said, studying the comparative data. "Why wasn't I made aware of these trends earlier?" "I tried to raise these issues in department meetings," I replied honestly, "but my concerns were dismissed as resistance to innovation." What surprised me most was how clearly I could articulate the technical problems when I wasn't being interrupted or condescended to. 18 years of experience had given me something no MBA program could teach: the ability to see patterns, anticipate problems, and understand the intricate relationships between variables that younger engineers often missed. Janet leaned back in her chair. "David, what would you recommend moving forward?" For months, I'd felt like I was fighting to preserve the past. But sitting in that office, presenting solutions rather than just complaints, I realized I wasn't trying to stop progress. I was trying to ensure it was built on solid foundations. "I recommend we implement a hybrid approach," I said. "Use proven methodologies as our baseline, then carefully test innovations on a smaller scale before full deployment. Experience and innovation don't have to be opponents. They should be partners." That evening, I called my wife Susan with news I hadn't expected to share. "I think things are about to change around here." I was right, but not in the way I anticipated. Friday morning brought the meeting that would decide my future at TechForward. Janet had called what she diplomatically termed a department strategy session, but everyone knew it was really a showdown between Marcus's vision and my experience. The conference room felt tense as we gathered around the oval table. Janet at the head, Marcus on one side with Jennifer and Kyle, me on the other with my folder of documentation. Through the glass walls, I could see other employees pretending to work while obviously watching our meeting. "I've reviewed David's concerns about our recent operational changes," Janet began, her tone carefully neutral. "Marcus, I'd like to hear your perspective on the equipment failures and performance metrics." Marcus launched into a defensive presentation about innovation cycles and acceptable failure rates during digital transformation. He pulled up charts showing theoretical efficiency gains and talked about long-term strategic positioning. But when Janet asked specific questions about the $47,000 in material costs and the delayed Ford deliveries, his answers became increasingly vague. "These are temporary growing pains," Marcus insisted. "Every major technological transition involves short-term sacrifices for long-term gains." $47,000 in 3 months isn't a growing pain, I interjected, unable to stay silent. "It's a systematic failure to understand basic engineering principles." The room went dead quiet. Marcus's face flushed red. "David, your resistance to change has been a consistent obstacle to our department's evolution. Perhaps it's time to consider whether your traditional approach aligns with our company's future direction." That was the moment I realized Marcus was trying to get me fired right there in front of everyone. The calculated cruelty of it, attempting to end my 18-year career in a public meeting, sparked something inside me I hadn't felt in months: righteous anger. I stood up slowly and walked to the whiteboard. "Let me show you something about traditional approaches." I drew 2 columns: Marcus's innovations and proven methods. Then I filled them with hard numbers: failure rates, costs, delivery times, client satisfaction scores. The data was devastating and undeniable. I said, "Innovation without foundation isn't progress." I turned to face everyone in the room. "It's just expensive chaos." Janet studied the whiteboard for a long moment, then looked at Marcus with an expression I'd never seen before: disappointment mixed with growing understanding. "Marcus, I think we need to have a private conversation after this meeting." The private conversation between Janet and Marcus lasted 2 hours. I spent that time at my desk, alternating between nervous energy and quiet confidence as I watched their animated discussion through the glass walls of Janet's office. Jennifer and Kyle kept glancing in my direction with expressions that ranged from curiosity to concern. When Marcus finally emerged from Janet's office, his usual swagger was completely gone. He walked directly to his desk, packed his personal items into a cardboard box, and left without saying a word to anyone. Jennifer and Kyle looked stunned, whispering frantically to each other near the water cooler. 20 minutes later, Janet called me back into her office. "David, I owe you an apology," she began, her tone serious but respectful. "The data you presented made it clear that we've been prioritizing perception over performance. Marcus's contract is being terminated, effective immediately." I felt a mixture of vindication and sadness. I'd never wanted Marcus to fail. I'd wanted him to succeed by learning from established practices rather than dismissing them. "More importantly," Janet continued, "I'm offering you the supervisor position. Your 18 years of experience, combined with your documented ability to maintain quality while managing costs, make you the obvious choice to lead this department." The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 months ago, Marcus had treated me like a relic. Now I was being asked to clean up the mess his younger ideas had created. "I accept," I said, "but with one condition. I want Jennifer and Kyle to stay. They have potential. They just need guidance from someone who understands both innovation and implementation." Janet smiled. "That's exactly the kind of leadership thinking we need." My first act as supervisor was calling an all-hands department meeting. I stood in front of the same room where Marcus had once dismissed my traditional approaches and outlined my vision. A department that embraced new technologies while respecting proven principles. "Experience isn't the enemy of innovation," I told the team. "It's the foundation that makes real innovation possible." Jennifer raised her hand tentatively. "David, I'd like to apologize for not listening when you tried to explain why some of our changes weren't working." "No apology necessary," I replied. "Now let's figure out how to move forward together." The failed machines were back online within a week. Our Ford project was delivered ahead of the revised schedule, and for the first time in months, our department felt like a team again. 8 months later, I'm sitting in what used to be Marcus's office, reviewing quarterly reports that tell a story of remarkable transformation. Our department's efficiency has increased by 32% compared to last year, while our material waste has dropped to the lowest levels in company history. The Ford contract that nearly fell apart under Marcus's supervision has expanded into a multi-million-dollar partnership that's brought 3 new automotive clients to TechForward. The irony isn't lost on me that the outdated methods Marcus tried to eliminate became the foundation for genuine innovation. Jennifer and Kyle, once his eager disciples, are now my most trusted team members. Jennifer recently completed her certification in advanced materials engineering, while Kyle has become our specialist in sustainable printing practices. Turns out they weren't the problem. They just needed a supervisor who taught through mentorship rather than dismissal. Last month, I was invited to speak at the Detroit Advanced Manufacturing Conference about integrating experience with innovation in modern production. Standing at that podium, looking out at an audience of engineers and executives, I realized something profound. My 18 years of experience weren't holding me back. They were my greatest asset. The most satisfying moment came 6 weeks ago, when TechForward was featured in Industry Week magazine for our revolutionary approach to sustainable 3D printing. The article highlighted our unique combination of proven methodologies and cutting-edge applications. When the journalist asked about our success formula, I explained it simply. Respect what works, improve what doesn't, and never let ego override engineering. My home office looks different now too. Next to my old technical certifications and project photos, there's a new frame containing the Manager of the Year award I received last month. But more importantly, there are photos from our department's recent team building events, images that show Jennifer, Kyle, and our 3 new hires working together on projects that blend innovation with experience. Susan often finds me there in the evenings, not brooding over past humiliations, but planning future improvements. She told me recently, "You seem different, more confident, but also more patient." She's right. Being dismissed for my age taught me something valuable. True leadership isn't about having the newest ideas. It's about having the wisdom to know which ideas will actually work. These days, when young engineers join our team, they don't see me as an obstacle to progress. They see me as a guide who can help them build their innovations on solid foundations.
Looking back on this entire journey, I realized that David Scott's story isn't really about age discrimination or workplace politics. It's about the power of perseverance and the value of experience in a world obsessed with the newest trends. The most satisfying moment came 6 weeks ago when Tech Forward was featured in Industry Week magazine for our revolutionary approach to sustainable 3D printing. The article highlighted our unique combination of proven methodologies and cutting-edge applications. When the journalist asked about our success formula, I explained it simply. Respect what works, improve what doesn't, and never let ego override engineering. My home office looks different now too. Next to my old technical certifications and project photos, there's a new frame containing the Manager of the Year award I received last month. But more importantly, there are photos from our department's recent team building events. Images that show Jennifer, Kyle, and our 3 new hires working together on projects that blend innovation with experience.
When Marcus first dismissed my methods as outdated, I felt defeated and irrelevant. But what I learned through those months of struggle is that experience isn't something to apologize for, it's something to leverage. The 18 years I spent mastering my craft, understanding the nuances of 3D printing technology, and building relationships with clients weren't wasted time. They were investments that paid dividends when the fancy algorithms and innovative approaches failed. The most important lesson from my experience is this: true innovation happens when you combine new possibilities with proven foundations. Marcus's mistake wasn't embracing technology, it was dismissing the human knowledge that makes technology work effectively. Jennifer and Kyle's success under my supervision proves that young talent and experienced guidance create something more powerful than either could achieve alone. Today, our department represents everything I believe about modern manufacturing. We use the latest software and equipment, but we implement it thoughtfully, test it thoroughly, and maintain it properly. We've proven that respecting experience doesn't mean rejecting progress. It means making progress sustainable. If you're facing similar challenges in your workplace, remember David's story. Whether you're the experienced professional being overlooked or the young innovator who thinks experience is irrelevant, the real success comes from collaboration, respect, and understanding that every generation has something valuable to contribute. Thank you for staying with David's story until the end. It truly means everything to have viewers who understand that sometimes the underdog's greatest strength is simply knowing what they're talking about. Your support helps stories like this reach people who might be facing their own workplace challenges. If you loved this story of persistence and vindication, smash that like button, drop a comment telling us what you want to see next, and make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories of people who refuse to give up. Should our next story feature more workplace drama, family conflicts, or maybe relationship betrayals? Your comments guide our content, so let us know. And please share this video with anyone who's ever felt undervalued at work. David's triumph might be exactly the inspiration they need to keep fighting for what they've earned.